Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar, Cross-Border Teams, How and Why. My name is Tamara, and I wish you welcome on behalf of myself and InterVenture. We're a Swiss company, and for the past 8 years, we've been focused on building A-star tailor-made distributed teams for numerous partners all over the world. We wanted to share our views and experience on this topic, so we invited two of our partners tonight. From our side, I want to welcome Leticia Jovanovic, our Chief People Officer, who has more than 20 years of experience in business development and HR field in diverse industries such as metallurgy and hospitality and IT industry. Darren Stone is a support manager for Icon Solution Payment Product, IPF. Over 30 years, Darren has worked in the payments, banking, sports betting, and communication industries, working for both multinational corporations through small consultancies. His previous roles have included software engineer, business analyst, database consultant, and project manager. Darren is passionate about building highly effective teams, so yeah, well done. Our last guest tonight will be Jeremy Seitz, CTO of TX Market and CTO of Ricardo, with more than 20 years of IT industry for the past, he's a tech leader, developer, hacker, and experienced team lead, successfully deploying and managing complex projects. So if I calculated correctly, all of you have more than 70 years of experience, and you're still that young.
How old are we?
Yeah,
so you have,
Thanks for that. Thank
70 years of experience together, so I'm really looking forward to hear what all of you have to say about this topic. Before we start, I would like to point out that there is a Q&A option at the bottom of your screen, so you can ask questions that my guests will answer at the end of the panel. Letty?
Thank you, Tamara, for this introduction and giving our accumulated age. I think it's quite a shock for all of us, but okay, let's take it from there.
Experience. You started working young.
Yeah, that's true. So it's been a while that we were thinking of a series of discussion with our partners, sharing their experience on nearshoring and remote development teams. So I'm really happy that we finally succeeded to find the date for this first episode. There will be others in the future, but today it's the first one. So thank you also for attending to this first series. So I will start with you, Jeremy, and ask you simply if you could tell us a few words about Ricardo and TX Group.
Sure. TX Group is actually a 100-year-old company. It was started as a newspaper kind of a business, and it was originally called Tamedia. They renamed it because the company became very digital. It's one of these success stories of a publisher that began growing and investing for the last 10 years in the digital space, and they own a number of popular Swiss brands in real estate, in secondhand goods, in jobs and the job market, cars, and so forth, as well as investments in throughout Europe. And Ricardo is one of their biggest assets. It's a 20-year-old company in Switzerland that is, I could basically describe it as like the eBay of Switzerland. We do auctions, we do fixed price things. But Switzerland's an interesting place, and Ricardo has a lot of really good inventory. People tend to collect things here. They tend to take care of things. There's a lot of interesting luxury goods. There's rare stuff, coins and stamps, and some of these very geeky hobbies are quite popular. The challenge, for me was, I started by saying it was a 20-year-old company, and when I started there 4 years ago, it was 16 years of legacy. So we had to build a whole new platform and all of that, but that's another story. But anyway, so that's kind of a bit of a background. So it's basically marketplaces, and that's why we renamed it to TX Markets, this division of the company.
Thank you, Jeremy. And Darren, can you tell us more about Icon Solutions?
Sure. I mean, Icon Solutions, we're about a 10-year-old company. Around about 120 employees at the moment. We're based in Wimbledon, but at the moment not many of us are based in Wimbledon. We're pretty much all working from home. Icon Solutions, I guess we provide payments and enterprise solutions for the financial sector. I personally am the support manager for IPF, which is our payments platform. We're kind of, I suppose, as a company, we're kind of split between a consultancy side and the team who work on our payments platform, which we've rolled out to a number of tier 1 banks. So personally, my job is to support IPF, which is that payments platform.
So obviously there are two completely different industries like on this discussion tonight. So I'm curious to ask you why you decided to build a remote development team at some point.
Is that to me?
Yes, sure.
Okay, I'll go first. Well, about 2 years ago, we were building up IPF. We had a nearshore partner, and that nearshore partner was they were doing fine initially, but then after a while we were finding that instead of the first guys who joined and were sort of our nearshore team, they all started getting rolled off, and we were then sort of kind of left with the juniors. And there was also, I guess we also had the issue that even though we had the juniors, there was also some people on the team who would be arriving, and we weren't 100% sure if they were doing, what work they were doing for us. And in the end, it just became an issue because, as I said, they were a massive nearshoring company. So us at Icon, 100 odd employees, I suppose we were quite small fry for them. So it wasn't, in terms of what they were delivering, it was getting less and less. And in the end, we decided to actually get rid of them. We didn't have I guess at that time, our backup plan was we'd try and find another partner, nearshore partner, or we'd try and, take more people on locally. I think in the end, we decided that the nearshore partner, we wouldn't give up on the nearshore partner route, and we tried to, I guess, really see what was out there in the marketplace. And I had previously worked for a Serbian-based company, so just really started looking to see what was out there, and I managed to find InterVenture just with a plain Google search. And because of my contacts in Serbia, I could run InterVenture past them. Do you know of anyone who's worked with InterVenture? Do you know about the company? And I got some good feedback, regarding InterVenture. So we decided to sort of make the first contact, which was about 2 years ago today. I would say it's probably the first contact we made. So yeah, that's how we came to find InterVenture in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And you, Jeremy?
So for us, I think I joined TAM Media, now TX Group, in 2016, and I was part of this team called Core Engineering. This was before I started at Ricardo. And at the time, I mentioned there are lots of different companies at TX, and we have HomeGate and JobCloud and Ricardo, Tutti, and a lot of these brands. And each of them was kind of doing their own thing with hiring. And starting in around 2016, even a little before that, the job market in Switzerland was getting tougher and tougher, and Switzerland imposes quotas. And in addition to that, hiring remotely was really too complicated. Switzerland is also not kind of fully in the EU, and there's other complications, differences, and so forth. Anyway, the idea, which was at the time from management, was let's try to create a center where we can hire talent and pick a location, a nearshore location where we can get the right talent. And it was really about talent. It wasn't about cost or anything like that. It was about let's try to find the best engineers we can. So a search was started. They looked at 12 or 14 different possible countries. The idea was plus or minus one time zone. And then it came down to the finalists, which were the cities of Barcelona and Belgrade, because of many favorable decisions related to everything from taxes, labor laws, and so forth. But those were the two cities. Barcelona was out of the race because at the time they were having political turmoil, and also the market was tough. And we went to Belgrade and we interviewed a number of different companies that were offering nearshoring services. And I was also at the time, and still believe, a strong proponent of agile. And I worked remotely for 10 years from Switzerland with companies in the US, so I had been through that. And we decided we wanted to work with a company that truly understood how to have engineers working together like they're on the same team. I personally had terrible experiences, and also Ricardo had terrible experiences working with offshore, meaning you talk to the company, you talk to the project manager, they then write the tickets and yell at people. The code comes back, it's not what you expected, you file change requests, there's a QA team and so forth, it never ends. We didn't want that. We wanted real talent that felt like they were working for our company. So we were looking for a partner. The last company we visited was InterVenture, and I think it took us about 10 minutes being in your office to realize it was like the perfect match. So it went on from there, and then it grew and grew. So now I think we hit 100 employees or something. What's the number officially now?
100, yes, almost 120.
Almost
So,
100 and
yes,
something.
from
I mean,
0 to 120 in 4 years, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So it was
Yes.
wildly successful. And what happened was each of the companies, which had already had quite big growth ambitions and wanting to start teams and so forth, began to start their teams. And it started small with just a couple of teams. I think Ricardo was maybe the second or third team to sign on.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then it just kept going, and I think it's now 12 or 15 companies in the end ended up doing it, as well as central services and so forth. And then story goes on. So.
No, but it's very important business decision in the end, to decide to have a nearshore or a remote team somewhere. And I can imagine that there are many concerns, before taking this huge decision. And I can recall actually when we met the first time in 2016, and I needed to address to 20 CTOs from Chief's group that had like plenty of questions and how it's going to work out and what if. And so, of course, there is a lot of also research and investigation before this type of decision. So I wanted to ask you also, like, what were the main concerns on your side, even though you were definitely like an ambassador, for this remote team development, but what were the main concerns that you were confronted with, or that you heard also from other CTOs at that time?
I think they were, I mean, it varied, but one of the common things was having a sense of control or input over the employees. One of the big differences between nearshoring and doing this kind of shared team model is that you actually have people in your company that are line managing people directly. You have this real relationship with the one-on-ones and all of this kind of thing. And I think that was one concern. The speed at which they could hire or change their setup was also important to them. A big point from my side was the support structure, meaning the culture has to be right. So there has to be a chance for people to get together. There should be hack days. There should be trainings. They need to have a great work environment. They need to feel supported and taken care of. They need to have coaching and good on-site services. Some of the companies that we actually interviewed had very little. We actually visited one company that had like 35 people jammed into the living room of the house. And it was like, it was really all over the map, the different approaches. But it needed to be a professional office, and the standards needed to be exactly like we had in Switzerland. We needed to have good quality equipment, exactly the same in every way in terms of the office environment. And the way that they were treated and supported. And that's important because if you're going to work together as a team, you need to be on equal footing. And interesting case was like in Ricardo, they had been working with nearshoring in the Ukraine. We stopped that, but they have had for 20 years. We've had an engineering office in France, and you could almost never tell where somebody was working. You would be in a meeting in Ricardo, and you'd always see people on a screen, and they might be in France, or they might be in Zurich, or Zug, or somewhere else, and then Belgrade. So it was a natural fit. But the important thing is that it had to be a certain level of quality standard.
And same question to you, Darren. What were the main concerns before you have taken this decision?
I think our main concerns were we didn't want to get ourselves into the same position we got into before with the other nearshore company. I think though, as soon as we arrived at the InterVenture office, I think rather like Jeremy, it probably took us 10 minutes to realize that, you know, we were a great fit. I think probably company size wise at the time, you were probably very similar size to us. The whole ethos and culture seemed to be very similar to ours as well. And I think really from that moment onwards, we kind of, our concerns just tended to melt away a little. I think, you know, it's, as I said, it's that there seemed to be a mutual trust there between us as well in terms of, you know, the directors of your company. And I think all we wanted to make sure was that we had a team that, again, probably a bit like what Jeremy said, that our team in Belgrade was going to be the same. We'd be treating them the same as we would treat the Icon team in Wimbledon. And it was just, you know, everything seemed to fit in that respect. We were, in fact, we were blown away by how similar our two companies were in the whole ethos, including the way that the owners of the companies were as well. So to be fair, I think once we come in and met, we were pretty confident that everything would work out for the best, which it has done.
Yeah, would you say that it is the main differentiator between like the usual or standard outsourcing and nearshore, this proximity also with people, with the lack of middle management in between, this inclusive approach actually?
Yeah, I think again, because like what we were saying, the guys who work for us are kind of, you know, are just a fit into our teams. They just fit. They work in the squads, the same squads as our guys do. We don't just have a InterVenture team doing stuff and an Icon team doing stuff. They're all intermingled. And you know, in terms of like we were saying about the whole fit, obviously we've got the cultural fit. We've only got the 1 hour difference. It means that we all work at the same time. We're not starting work and then, you know, the guys in, let's say, offshore might be finishing at midday or something along those lines. We're all working together at the same time. So we have our stand-ups every morning, you know, for everyone in the first hour or so. Obviously the team, brilliant English, brilliant communication, and as we found, really good quality engineers. So, you know, everything fits very, very well.
Did you make some, pardon, Jeremy?
Oh, I was just going to add to that and say the simplest way I could describe it is as if we had gone down and opened an office, you know, as if Ricardo had an office in Belgrade. It would be a carbon copy of what we wanted to have in Switzerland. And I mean, from the decision to set it up, all of those details were clear. And what we noticed when we visited were, you know, you have a number of different clients and each had their own culture. They had their own spaces. They were sharing with each other and interacting a bit, but it really felt like a office park where you walk into your office and there are 7 or 8 different companies there and they're sharing the same office space, co-working, but they're really working for different companies, and even with the logos and everything. And that's, I think the differentiator is there is no middle management other than the fact that you're doing HR and some basic support thing to help people. There's no project manager who's like, please give me the requirements. And no, I don't have anybody who can work on that right now, but I can offer you another developer who's here next week. And, you know, it's none of that. It's just like, that's your guy or girl they're on your team, you decide.
Yes, I mean, this cultural aspect is definitely the key of everything. I mean, we like to say at InterVenture that we are a culture of cultures, which is probably complex, but when things happen very naturally, as it is the case, you know, for Icon Solutions of Ricardo, things are really, like, as you described, it's an extension of your own office. And if you look at your colleagues the same way as you do in your office in Switzerland or in England, actually this inclusive approach gives you really like this sensation that they are just sitting next to you. This is the closest of having, you know, the team. And speaking of, you know, this cultural aspect, so can you give us also more insights on how you think we can also transmit cultures across borders?
Yeah, I think it starts with the rituals, the way that people do stand-ups and all of that kind of stuff. You know, the demos, the full participation. It's often a problem I see in companies that are not yet good at remote. They'll start a meeting and they forget to turn the screen on. And then you have somebody who wants to join and they're like, hey, you know, I can't join this meeting. It has to be automatic, that everything, so the company culture needs to be that every room that you go into has a screen, it has a camera. Of course, now we're talking about this and it seems obvious because we all have to do that. But, you know, if we rewind 2 or 3 years, most people had no idea how to do this. And I think the individual culture, though, is also transported. We even had events where we would, you know, share a discussion together, have a beer after work, and we're talking over the camera. But more importantly, the travel, the constant travel. Engineers from our side going on site, working in Belgrade, people from Belgrade coming. We would invite them to every major event, every party. You know, it's totally worth it because it's a full integration and people build those personal relationships. And then giving people room to experiment and hack and do ideas and learn and things like that, sharing in trainings. You know, all of these things help in creating, that's the culture in general. You know, I don't even need to talk about the culture of remote because it's just solved, but the culture in general for engineering.
And you, Darren?
Yeah, very, very similar. I guess in terms of initially, we had the first 4 engineers in pairs of 2 came over to Wimbledon and spent 2 weeks with us. So the first 4 guys kind of experienced Wimbledon. They experienced what Icon Solutions was all about. And they are kind of, I suppose, really, they've gone back and kind of the sort of cheerleaders for Icon Solutions after that. Plus, also, they were the guys who had the initial knowledge sharing sessions anyhow, and 2 of the guys are the sort of the lead engineers as we speak. Other than that, you know, pair programming can be done remotely, no problem at all with that. The daily stand-ups, as I said, at the moment, everyone's daily stand-up is via Teams. So actually, everyone's equal in that anyhow. No one's in the office, but even if people were in the office, the team stand-up will have 2, 3 of the InterVenture guys in each squad anyhow. So you know they won't feel alone just being the only one working remotely. You know, we have regular showcases from each of the squads as well, so everyone's involved to see what each of the squads doing. You know, developer share sessions, again, everyone's invited to them. And then so socially we have the weekly meetings, so we go through what sales are hopefully you know, sort of coming through the pipeline. You know, people give each other kudos for doing great stuff during the week, and we normally finish with a quiz of some sort. So you know, everyone's sort of you know, everyone's involved with that. As I said, the InterVenture guys are just seen as exactly the same as everyone else who works for Icon. And again, the visits are important as well. You know, once we get out of this situation, then hopefully we can sort of get the visits working again. So it's either our guys coming out to Belgrade, or the guys who, the guys from Belgrade who haven't been to Wimbledon coming to Wimbledon and meeting the guys there. But sadly, that we don't know when that's going to be possible.
Yes.
But that's, that whole thing it's always on our sort of roadmap, is we want to make sure that we have regular people coming out to Belgrade and people coming to Wimbledon, because the face-to-face stuff is really important as well.
Yes, I think this. Pardon.
Sorry, Letty, we just got two questions that are regarding this topic now. How often, Daniel Diaz asked, how often do you communicate with your remote teams? And have they experienced feelings of loneliness, especially those who are not in the same location with the team?
I think I think we probably we speak to the team every single day. The stand-ups take place every single day. So the team will be communicating exactly the same as anyone else who works, for sort of whose, I suppose, head office is Wimbledon. So yeah, we're sort of in constant communication with them. I mean, it may be over Teams, but in terms of probably how many other meetings and dev shares and pair programming and sign-offs of stuff they have to do, it's quite frequent. So they'll be seeing people all the time in various Teams meetings. And I forgot what the second question was. Second part of the question.
Yeah, it was, have they experienced feelings of loneliness, especially those who are not the same location with the team?
I certainly, it's nothing we've heard of. I think again, because normally in the old ways, the team were working in the same office. We haven't got the 100 or so, the same as Germany, but we've got 11 guys who work together. So they work in the same office. I guess it's probably the same issues at the moment as everyone else is having, sort of working remotely. It's not a sort of InterVenture thing. It's a global thing, that there's going to be some people who need to maybe go into the office occasionally just to get some of that human contact, like we said. But it's not been an issue we've ever had.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting also aspect when you get a remote teams. Okay, you are very experienced already with this setup, but for those who do not have the remote teams yet, and when they start to build a team, it leads them to rethink also some internal processes and communication ways. So it has a real impact sometimes on the company level, because they need to also engage with other people that are in the original office, to make sure what you said actually, Jeremy, that they turn their camera on, that if piece of information is important to be shared, or not important actually, but just to have always this inclusive approach in their mind, they need to have really a kind of reflex, and this reflex shall be built also somehow through this culture of, guys, we have also other people that are not sitting in the office, so make sure they are getting the same information as you do by sitting next to us. So yeah. Did you observe also this kind of transformation?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning we had some troubles, but it was I'm talking specifically about Ricardo. And I mean, one thing to say is, even though TX Group has 100 people, they're all in small teams. So it's not like there's 70 people sitting together working on the same code base. That would be crazy. But like Ricardo, we have a team of 5 in Belgrade. So in the beginning we had troubles, but they were company level troubles, organization. I mean, if the company is not good at agile and doesn't have this kind of autonomous team cross-functional setup, it's going to be a hard transition for them anyway. I think that is something everyone should be doing anyway, because it's pretty much proven to be a better culture and better output. But the problem we had was engagement, meaning that it wasn't always clear, that people were on the same page. Everybody was always busy, but were they doing the right things at the right moment? And were the interruptions becoming too much? The problem we had was too much engagement. I'm trying to code and I've got 15 people writing to me on Slack, and then somebody's trying to do a hangout call with me, like, I'm trying to get something done here, please leave me alone. So that was the problem we had, and now it became much better over the last few years. I think working with the teams in Belgrade actually helped all of us get a bit better at how we do that, because it inadvertently brought standardization and best practices to all of the companies, because we learned from each other. They weren't talking to each other before. And suddenly everybody had something in common. They had teams in Belgrade, and each of the subsidiary companies at TX, each of the marketplace companies had to talk to each other. How are you doing it? How is your team working? What is working for you? And that same conversation was happening on the Belgrade level between team leads there. So these habits happen pretty quickly. As the teams grew, they got better and better at it. So.
And did you also notice, Darren, at Icon Solutions, that it has changed something in the way you were operating before having a remote team in Belgrade?
I'm not sure if it's necessarily been that obvious. I suppose at the time, the whole thing about, you know, going into a meeting room, making sure that the monitor is switched on and you can see everyone, and they can see us. I think we managed to transition to that pretty quickly and pretty easily. I think probably at the time we probably had a couple of our engineers who were working remotely anyhow. So we had to we were already provisioning for them in that type of way. So, you know, whenever the stand-ups were taking place, we'd always have the monitor, and it would have someone. Even prior to InterVenture, there'd always be someone from somewhere was, you know, either working at home or working in another country. So I think we did provision that quite well. Obviously, at the moment, it's one of those things. We're all on teams. It doesn't really make any difference. So I would say probably not too much, mainly because we all had a very similar. The guys seem to have a very similar culture to us, and just with the agile way of working, it just did seem to fit quite well.
Yes. I wanted also to ask you now with the time. So for you, Jeremy, it's been 4 years. For you, Darren, almost 2 years. Knowing what you know now with this collaboration, would you have done some things differently in terms of, I don't know, onboarding, knowledge transfer?
I think probably knowledge transfer for us, I think, seemed to work quite well with us getting the first 4 guys into Wimbledon, and for a really prolonged period, like 2 weeks. Come to Wimbledon for 2 weeks and stay here for 2 weeks, which I think for a couple of the guys, you know, they realised it was worth it, but they had young families and stuff like that. So it was quite an ask for actually for them to come and do that. But that whole knowledge transfer thing has worked in our favour, because as I said, I think we were quite lucky that of the first 4 guys who came over, you know, they are kind of the senior guys in the team, so they were really good at providing that knowledge transfer for anyone else who came on board. And also what we benefited from was the first 4 guys, we interviewed them remotely, and they went through the normal sort of technical test and all the other sort of type of things that anyone would do if they were coming into the office. After those 4 had joined, they've had autonomy to actually do the interviews themselves. So it's, you know, for us, it's even helped in that respect, because these guys know what we're looking for. They know what they're looking for. They've got to work with these guys. So they're kind of doing the interview, and we just in the end up with sort of a 30-minute rubber stamping type process. So I would say, you know, that has worked really well. I mean, in terms of anything else we might do differently, I think probably it took us a little while to realized we needed to get the guys into the same almost like review process as our team, because it was kind of up to us to any pay rises and stuff like that were down to our say so. It wasn't down to anyone else. It was down to our say so, exactly like it would be if they were our team in Wimbledon.
Mm-hmm.
So it took us a while to realize, actually, we need to get these guys into this, into this review process. We need to think about career paths for them, all the sort of type of things that you would do for your normal team. So I would say that was probably the one thing that we'd probably do slightly differently. We'd probably have thought about that a bit sooner, because it kind of it crept up on us a little bit, and yeah, we've now got that in place. But I think I was thinking of the downsides, and that to me was the only thing I think we might have done wrong.
Same question for you, Jeremy.
I think the first struggle that we had, we wanted to get going right away, and it took us way too long to get started. And I blame it on two things. One was a lack of a sense of urgency on the side of the business. Like, I think there was this expectation that, like, we sign the contract, we say, hey, we want a team, we've got budget for a team, cool, where's our team? Like, we didn't actually realize that, like, they weren't just going to appear magically like in Star Trek. Like, we had to go out and find them and recruit them and sell them. And we also miscalculated. We were thinking, okay, it's really hard to hire in Switzerland, it should be easier in Belgrade. But it's actually, you've got to sell yourself. You've got to convince people that they need to work for you, especially if you're like a company in Switzerland that nobody's heard of. They're not using our products, so they don't know about us. So we had to actually rethink our pitch, because we're used to hiring in Switzerland, and our companies can say, oh, we're with Homegate or we're with Ricardo, and everyone's like, oh my God, I know that company. I use them all the time. No, you go to Belgrade, or, you want to work for Ricardo. What is that? I have no idea what Ricardo is. So we had to completely redesign our pitch. The other problem was that we had to really get the team leads and the engineers involved. They needed to understand Belgrade. So it took us a while to realize that, and we had to send them to Belgrade and onboard them to educate them on what the environment was like, get to meet people, get to know people. And it wasn't until, at least with Ricardo, until we found our team lead, and that was the advice you had given us, get a good team lead first. And we found a great team lead, Milos, if you're listening. And he really helped us find great people very quickly, and was super supportive and really kickstarted everything. And I think it was a similar story for the other companies in TX. Once they got a good team lead on board, things started to work. Yeah, and the other thing I think I would do differently was our hiring process was too damn complicated. I remember at one point you called me up and you're like, Jeremy, you have like a 19-step process. Your guys are having people go through and do homework and on-site quizzes, and they're making them do team fits and meetings with all this stuff. This is ridiculous. Nobody's going to do this. These people have like 10 job offers, the good engineers. You've got to nab them. And you had to kind of walk us through how to make that process a bit simpler and to really grab the right people when the moment was good. So those were maybe the main things I would do differently. It requires that education on the company side.
I think you said really everything. I have a very provocative sentence. When we get to know like new companies that are interested, to collaborate, I said, okay, that's great, but just for you to know, right now on our market, you are nobody, which is a good news, because you can become whoever you want through the candidate experience, through the culture that you're going to transmit, through the commitment that you're going to have. And that's why also we call you partners, because it's a true partnership. We work this journey like together, like it starts from the recruitment process to the life cycle of every colleague that joins InterVenture in your company. And I think this is really like the biggest differentiator probably with the other organizations. So said like that, maybe it sounds like demanding, but on the other hand, I think that the reward is pretty good when I look at your team and the people that that you have in your team that are part of your organization. It's pretty. I think it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think if you get good people, it's infectious. You know, that's a terrible word to use right now. Sorry, but you know what I
Terrible.
mean? Like good engineers attract more good engineers. That's the bottom line. And if you have people that are motivated and they really like what they're doing and they like the company, they like the product, they will attract more people. If you have people that aren't too much in love with their job and they don't like what they're doing, everyone can sense that. And I think that's really important for the success in any software development company. If you want to find and keep good people, you actually have to create a really good environment and the empowerment and all that kind of stuff. And I think it helped that there was already companies working there and there's a network. So people knew each other. You know, we talked to some of your other clients and they were like, oh, you know, we have somebody that we can offer you that wants to move, or we know of this person that you might want to talk to, or you gave us personal recommendations, and all of that really helps. Because if you don't know anybody and you're going through ads in the paper, good luck. Good engineers
Yes.
don't look for jobs. They have good jobs and they're refusing offers. They're not out shopping for jobs. So
No, and it's all around also the community. So it's not only about, you know, finding people, it's also being part of a community and to give also to this community. We have also like many initiatives that also Tamara drives, but she will mention that also at another moment. But it's definitely around that. You were also yourself, Jeremy, speaker at one of the biggest conference in the region.
yes.
And that is also the beauty of these partnerships. I mean, in the end, you came on this stage in Belgrade talking to engineers about microservices and making a parallel with the music.
Yes, I was playing my synthesizer. Don't make me talk about synthesizers. I'll be up the next hour. It's really unfair. But yeah, no, I did. It was a wonderful event, and actually really got to meet some really cool people. And yeah, I basically played my homemade synthesizer setup and did an analogy to how microservices work and stuff, and got some really good feedback and some
was amazing.
SoundCloud followers who listen to my music. I think 30 followers. Pretty exciting. So
Well done, Jeremy.
Yes. So I think you have already like gave some great advices to future companies who would envision, you know, for their future business development to have remote teams here in Belgrade. I don't know if you want to add something to these good advices.
maybe to
Darren?
Darren.
I think, well, just do it, I would say. I think the main thing would be go out, visit InterVenture. I think if you visit InterVenture, you get to meet the people. You get to see the offices that they get to work in, which, by the way, are much better than Icon's offices. Although I do need to practice my table tennis before I come back to make sure I can beat the team next time. I would say that would be my main thing. If anyone's thinking about it, reach out to InterVenture and just come and see you guys. I think it was just pretty much what Jeremy was saying. I mean, we were lucky. We came and spoke to InterVenture and everything we thought, yeah, perfect. You're the perfect solution for us. It sounds like, you know, Jeremy's gone out there and he's spoken to a number of companies, and he's came to the same conclusion as us. Yeah, yeah, it's just that reach out, go and speak to InterVenture, and go and see them.
Yeah, I would definitely second that. I think also Belgrade as a location is truly impressive. It's a great city. It's a great region. The schools, the universities are really good. I was very impressed with the level of technical ability, and again, I'm comparing this also to my experience in the States and so forth. The communication skills, the engagement, the attitude that people have is just fantastic. And a sense of pride and a sense of engagement, and it's a great cultural fit for entrepreneurial mindset. You know, if you want to build a product that is going to be competitive and you want to be ambitious and get stuff to market, I actually really like the spirit. I think that's partly InterVenture. It's also partly Belgrade and the current generation of people that are working there. But you know, it feels to me a little bit like New York felt in the 1990s. This sense of excitement that stuff is growing and there's big things coming and a high level of ambition, which is really cool. So yeah, go out there and get engineers in Belgrade before they're all employed by me or Darren.
Yeah.
Great. I think we are coming to an end to this discussion. So Tamara,
We have one more question. It says like this, yeah. How about having someone on site for longer than 2 weeks, 1 or 2 months? In one of the companies from before, people organize the place, kind of affordable, to stay for Indian guy for a month or so, even to bring his family with him. Could you share your view on it?
I suppose if we're talking, our view is we had the guys for 2 weeks. I guess longer would probably benefit them, but I think we found that 2 weeks actually they gained enough. I mean, these are good quality engineers. They gained enough from those 2 weeks to go back and become productive almost straight away. So I'm not necessarily sure if increasing that time scale, obviously it would be, I guess it's going to be beneficial, but it's probably going to be smaller gains as the time goes on. I would say for us and for our product, 2 weeks for quality engineers, it did us just fine. But yeah, obviously they could have stayed for longer, but I'm not sure if we would have gained much more from staying longer than 2 weeks. 2 weeks and everything we do and the connection we have with them on a daily basis, to answer questions they had once they went back to Belgrade was more than enough. That's just personally speaking from our product.
Yeah, it's something that we wouldn't prohibit it. I mean, if somebody wanted to come and stay, the only limitation is really looking at, I don't know, travel restrictions like we have now, or visas, whatever, if there's some kind of restrictions. But as an example, we also, I mean, we have a few employees that are scattered. Like we have employees in France at Ricardo, for example. We have some people that are permanently based out of Poland, for example, as independent, self-standing contractors. And we've had people that have come and stayed for a month at a time, like they do a month in Switzerland and then a month at home, and then they cycle. But for the most part, with our teams in Belgrade, people have families, they have pets, they have they have school, or they have personal projects going on. So yeah, it's generally they're happy to come for the rituals and things like that, but it wasn't a frequent. It didn't really come up as a frequent request for us.
And it's only a 2-hour flight, so I guess it makes difference because like in the question there was Indian guy, so I guess it's a bit different. Do we have any more questions?
It's true. I'm not sure that people also realize that we are literally in the suburb of Zurich or London. It's with the like 2 hours flight, you are already like arrived. So we are very actually close.
Yeah, it's an easy commute. So.
Yeah, we have one more question. You have moved from one company to another, but still creating high performance team. What do you offer to them for they to trust you, since they will have more technical knowledge of their product at the company you arrive?
So maybe you can rephrase the question. I didn't quite understand it.
Trying to. What do you offer them for the trust you?
So how you build up the trust?
Yep.
How you build up the trust?
that the engineer trusts the company that's hiring them. Convince them that you're passionate about what you're doing and you do it well. You know, that you're not messing around. You're not lost in bureaucracy. You're competent. I think the biggest thing is if I'm trying to hire an engineer and convince an engineer to join one of my teams, my best tool is to have them meet the other engineers. And
exactly. Yeah.
if they meet me and they hear me and see how dead serious I am about engineering culture and you know, good technical things and doing things the right way and growing people and training them and all of that kind of stuff. If they believe me and then they talk to the people that work for me and they see that they also live that, that's enough. And, you know, if I can't convince you with that, then I wish you luck on your next job. So.
Yeah, I think I always have in interviews have a period where I'm not, certainly I wouldn't be in the room, and I just say you can ask the guys anything you want. You know, they will be transparent. You can ask them anything about the company, about, you know, myself or whatever, and then therefore that's, you know, exactly the same as Jeremy's saying. That's the best way. Just get them to speak to the team who they'll be working with.
Yeah.
And what about a case when you are new and they have more technical knowledge of the product than you?
So in other terms, like what to do with people who are better than you?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think we've hired people that have absolutely blown us away with their insight. That's another thing I should point out is that engineers are not about writing code. Engineers are about building products for users. And if people come with good ideas and good sense of how to get stuff done and they can execute and they can make a better product and they understand the product and the business really well, that's amazing. And we don't place limitations. I don't believe in placing limitations because your title is a product manager or UX person, that you are the only one who can touch the product. I have engineers meeting customers. We have our engineers spend time working with customer care and listening to phone calls. We, you know, really involve them in all of that. And you have to. I mean, even in management at our company, we use the product that we build. So we're you know, buying and selling stuff on our own platform. And that's not because we're trying to show off or something like that. It's like, it's literally the best way to be successful. It's a formula that works. So yeah, I mean, I hope that our engineers are the best people at knowing what to do.
Great. Well, thank you for those answers. Thank you for those questions also. I guess we can conclude this panel discussion with that. Darren, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming and for sharing your views. I can say we can conclude that we became partners in under 10 minutes, as I understood.
Record time.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much. Really, it was super nice to see you, first of all, because we didn't see each other live for, unfortunately, some months now. But we really hope that these travels and things will start again so that we can continue also our drawing together.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.